This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing the future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest today is Suzanne Hopgood, author of Get Your Own Coffee, Underestimated, Overlooked, and Now the Boss. From small town New Hampshire to CEO of a New York Stock Exchange company, Suzanne turned being underestimated into an advantage and built a career leading through crisis, resilience, and principled leadership. Suzanne Hopgood, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm very good, Joe. Thank you. And, before we start, you need to know,
Okay.
first of all, I am the luckiest person you've ever met. I've had a series of friends and incidents and being born in the right place and all of it. I am just the luckiest person you've ever met, period.
Awesome. I love gratitude. I lean into gratitude as well. I think that's one of the things we're probably lacking in society. Like we're always, especially because of the social media, internet of wanting more and more and wanting what other people have. Like sometimes you got to be happy with what you got. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you feel like you are the luckiest person because I sometimes feel, I don't know if I never want to say I'm the luckiest person in the world because there's lotteries and like football games that I could possibly gamble on and win a large sum of money that could make me even luckier. But right now, I'll
Yeah,
take
but
what I got.
money's not lucky, Joe. Money's not
Yeah,
luck. Money's money.
yes, but sometimes it requires a bit of luck to acquire said money.
True. I'll
even
give you that.
even the geniuses of this planet, whether it's an Elon Musk or a Zuckerberg, there was a little bit of luck involved there. So, but that's here or there. For you, it wasn't really more of luck; it was timing, because way back in the before the knots, there were the '90s, and you took a position that was rare at the time. You were a woman that was going to be running a publicly owned company, and for many people, if I say that to you now, it's like, oh yeah, a woman running a public owned, okay, that happens all the time now. When you were doing it, it wasn't very common. So take our community of listeners, viewers watching, take us back to that time and how you got yourself into that position to be, what they call a glass ceiling breaker.
There was a whole process in getting there, but John Hancock was one of my largest clients. They recommended me to go on the board of a company called First Restaurant Group. I was on a board of one of the most dysfunctional boards ever. And so TI Craft launched a proxy contest to replace the entire board except one other person and me, which had never been done. And TI Craft had never done this before either. And so this was a whole precedent-setting event. They won, and they called me and said, "We won the proxy contest. You need to be chairman of the board of the New York Stock Exchange Company." And I said, "Great, except the CEO said he's going to resign if you win." "Well, then you're gonna have to be CEO." Now, people, I mean, that's an unbelievable conversation.
Yes.
In 3 minutes was an interview and a decision to become chairman and CEO of a New York Stock Exchange company, of which I, of course, had no background. So I started through I've never run a company with 5,000 people before. My consulting company is 8 people. And by the way, I have a consulting company with contracts out and obligations. And I've never run a public company, never mind in Lubbock, Texas. And I thought, wait a minute, if I were a guy, I'd be saying, how much are you going to pay me? So let's get rid of the don't know, can't do, blah, blah, blah. Let's just focus on what's next. And I said, okay, I have a company, I have contracts, I have obligations. How long do I have before we'll call you back in 3 hours? Great. Yeah. 3 hours. I ought to be able to solve all that in 3 hours. So my husband, of course, is standing there saying, well, of course you have to do this. It's not only that you're a woman, you're 48 years old. How many 48-year-old New York Stock Exchange company CEOs do you know? So he's yammering. And so I called a friend of mine who ran a similar consulting company. She said, there is no question. You need to do this. You tell your employees they're reporting to me. We'll do all the work. and you can still deliver the report so that it's not apparent that you didn't, you weren't there, but you need to do this. I'll take over your company. I'll do whatever needs. And imagine a friend like that, Rachel Roginski. Imagine that.
Wow.
So when I say lucky, I mean, how many people would have had that luck? Seriously.
Wow. Yeah. And there is something quaint about that, Suzanne, because now I'm sure you know, after running companies for years and being in leadership positions, we're almost to this, analysis, paralysis by analysis phase of like when someone gets hired for anything, whether it's like the reception or like the chairman of the board, there's like 3 months of interviews. There's like 70 people involved in the decision. I mean, so quaint. And it is funny too, because, and I understand why we've gotten to this world because of, cost of hire and all these data points that we have now. But man, what a great time where like a 3 hour decision basically led you to the rest of your career. Man, you know how they say like, the good old days? Those are the good old days I really miss, Suzanne.
But and when people say to me what was going on at the time, because you hear all the time and you've seen the experience of women not supporting women. And I can answer that because a lot of times companies would say we have one position for a woman.
Hmm.
So you were competing with other women. You weren't competing with anybody for the best person for the job. You were only competing, so that's where that came from. But in this case, because I had worked really hard at establishing what I call good old girls clubs, establishing groups of women, that we could get together and support each other. I've been working hard at that for a long time. And
Wow.
Rachel was somebody I knew from the International Society of Hospitality Consultants, which I was involved in. And I knew her from that. And so, um, she was, I mean, but what a godsend. What a wonderful person to say, I'll take care of this. You focus on doing that.
And it's funny, Suzanne, that's funny that you mentioned that one angle where I think most people wouldn't even think about. Like we talk about a lot of these leadership, C suites were all kind of boys club, and there would be that one woman, but never did I even think about was like, oh shoot, it's one woman, so like every woman is just competing for that one job. So when people say about, oh, women can't work with each other and it's hype, they become more competitive. Again, these are all very cliche things, but it's, yeah, of course it would lead to that kind of sort of fraught relationship with women when they know that if there's 10 positions, 9 are going to be men and 1 are going to be women. It brings extra competitiveness because men inherently are competitive, but when they know they've got 9 shots as opposed to 1, it sure makes a difference in those gender dynamics, doesn't it?
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that's wild. And it's funny too because I'm lucky enough to work in legacy media now, podcasting for 20 plus years, and I remember where in my old media jobs, it was that description of what you had. It was essentially all men and then maybe the one woman position, like, on our morning show. It was the news girl, right? And so
Yes.
now I fast forward 20 something years and I'm the news girl now, Suzanne. I'm the only guy surrounded by a bunch of women. Yes, so applaud. So I am the eye candy of the office, Suzanne. I hate to break it to you. But how cool is it for you to see this trajectory where it was all women fighting for that one job, and now all the women are fighting for every job?
It's a wonderful thing, and, it's just, um and one of the things I have to say this, one of the things in writing this book that I discovered going back to that, I thought this was my story, but is talking to women, every every corporate woman I've talked to has a parallel experience to mine. Not being chairman and CEO of a new stock exchange company, but in getting fired and, the process on getting there. And so to your point of, this was a very different time, and that one position and that and the assistants and all the things that happened to us, all the women that I talked to and explained about this book had parallel stories. So any one of us could have written this book. I'm just a bigger blabber.
Yes. I wasn't going to say there, Suzanne. But we should say that in terms of stories, there's one story that sort of is the theme of the book, and it leads you to the title of said book, and that is "Get Your Own Coffee." So I mean, this is no spoiler. I mean, it's essentially the inspiration for the book. But tell us about that moment of the "Get Your Own Coffee" moment, which, reading the book, to me, it played out like a 1980s Rocky movie where like the woman, maybe Working Girl, where the woman wins at the end and becomes the boss and stuff like that. Like, tell me about the "Get Your Own Coffee" moment for you.
Well, the company, the New York Stock Exchange company, like, I explained, TI crafted this. It was a precedent-setting move, and so now as a board, we need to get outside counsel, and this is very important because we are in the limelight. We've got to do everything right. We've gotta make sure that we do things right, that because we're highly visible. So we're interviewing for outside counsel, one of the most important positions we can be interviewing for. And there were no other public companies in Lubbock, so we're interviewing in Dallas for a public company. And we looked at, large international companies that we knew had the wherewithal to be able to represent us. So they were this one law firm was on our list, and it was a breakfast meeting, and so I got there first. They'd laid out breakfast, so I was getting my breakfast. I was the first one there, and one of the senior partners comes in and gives me his order for coffee. Because, of course, I'm a woman, so I must be either the person laying out the breakfast or the secretary. So I went out to the receptionist, asked her where to get what he ordered, got his coffee for him. By the time I got back, most everybody else was there, and the other senior partners of the law firm were there, as well as my board. So I put his coffee down in front of him and said, "I hope this is all right, sir." And then took my seat at the head of the table and watched him and his partners try to die on the spot.
They were dying inside, that's for sure.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
what was in terms of like when you placed that down, what was the vibe in the room? Because obviously that guy's probably mortified and ready to like, if he was a turtle, his head would go into the shell. Like, what was was everyone in the room? I mean, as anyone listening to this or watching this knows that you got a pretty good sense of humor. So I'm sure the people that knew you probably saw like, oh yeah, this is a typical Suzanne move. But what was the vibe like after you placed the coffee and then took the seat at the end of the table?
Um, I think people were just stunned, and the board, none of these people knew me because this board had just come on board in less than a week before. So nobody knew anything about we didn't know anything about each other.
Wow.
So, when we were faced with a number of crises early on, but this was a most important position to fill, and that's all we knew is this had to be done carefully, and, but the meeting was so short, you'll be amazed to hear. And, one of the things I said to people afterwards, "Well, did you do anything?" I said, "He proved he couldn't work with a woman." End of sentence. I was chairman and CEO. When you prove to me you can't work with a woman, guess what? I'm a woman. We're done.
Wow.
And I had already decided, we'd interviewed Mike Tankersley, and I had decided he was the guy I wanted because he said in the interview, he said, "I may not be the guy you want. I will not only give you the legal answer, I'll tell you what the right thing to do is." And he said, "But you may want a lawyer who just is gonna give you the legal answer." But he said, "That's the lowest bar." I said, "You're my guy."
Well, and I mean, and also, the fact that you didn't just rush and hire him, you're able to get this great story out of the whole thing. I mean,
Right.
everything happens for a reason, right? Because if you'd
And I
taken him up
said
on his offer right away, this you probably wouldn't have written this book. That'd be this catchy title. I mean, everything happens for a reason, Suzanne.
I started with a little stronger title, but I was told that it couldn't be published with that particular title. So,
Oh.
um, yes, well, there's that. Apparently, there are
Well,
criteria around.
I won't get you into trouble. We don't need to go there. So tell me about this. You write about, and you actually joked earlier about getting fired, and I think there was the line in the book was you were good at getting fired.
I'm very
What
good
did
at getting fired.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
The first time I had to leave a job was when my boss showed up at my condominium at 8 o'clock one night. And I was pretty sure, because I lived alone, I just got my divorce was final. I was pretty sure that he wasn't looking for company to go find a rescue dog. And so I sent him on his way, and I thought, well, I have a mortgage and a car loan, and tomorrow I won't have a job or a paycheck. So, you know, and the next day when I went in, my office had been moved to the basement. I was the chief lending officer. I was the youngest chief lending officer in the country at the time. I was in a job I loved. I would still be in that job if this hadn't happened. I loved it. I had a great team, lived in a great community. And so I had to. So Aetna was looking for somebody who'd worked in a savings bank, because that meant that they knew how to buy mortgages on the secondary market, which I didn't, never done it. Nobody asked me. Needed a job, didn't need to tell them I didn't have the skill set they were looking for. So took a job for Aetna and then transferred to the management. Aetna had a division, a $33 billion real estate division, 30 billion in mortgages, 3 billion in properties they owned, equity. And I ended up managing $1 billion portfolio, and got fired. It's a longer story than that. The head
Nobody
of
showed
my
up on your door with that one.
No, that one didn't. No, he actually the firing. Um, I became friends with the head of the department when I first went to work there, because he was the guy everybody pointed to as being the guy in Hartford who was the Hartford guy. He was involved in everything, and I wanted to get involved in the community, so everybody pointed to him. He was not my boss's boss at the time. And so he was introducing me to people. He got me on the board of the downtown council. So I had a relationship with him. And then I changed department, and he was my boss's boss. Well, you only have to know, I didn't know this. I'd never worked in a big corporation. You only have to know this one sentence to know what the end's going to be. Um, I had a better relationship with my boss's boss than my boss did. So that's all you need to know. I didn't know that that was the recipe for disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
And my boss was just completely dreadful. I mean, he was completely dreadful. He did everything he could to make my life miserable. And the kiss of death for me. See, guys would know what I'm about to talk about that I didn't know either. Uh, one of the one of the negatives I got on my evaluations is I didn't spend enough time developing a relationship with our joint venture partner, Lincoln Property Company, second largest developer in the country. They were partners on the properties that I managed in the San Francisco Bay Area. So one of the partners calls and says, "Why don't you come out a day early? We'll play golf at Pebble Beach." Because it's not enough that I have a better relationship with my boss's boss that he does. I'm about to cross over the line of doing something every guy I worked with would want to do,
They would have
including
killed to done
they
that.
would have
Yeah.
killed for.
Yes. Yes.
So the guy that called me had been the captain of the golf team at Stanford. He was a par golfer. So not only am I playing golf at Pebble Beach, I'm playing with a par golfer. So how do we think that went?
Not well. Not well. Well, I'm sure the golf was probably pretty terrible because he had to.
And the same guy who was my boss's boss had made me learn how to play golf as soon as I went to work there. He signed me up for a golf tournament, an all-guy golf tournament. And I didn't understand at the time. And I subsequently learned you learn everything you need to know about somebody's character in 5 hours of golf. And that's what he wanted me to learn. Cheaters cheat. Doesn't matter. If somebody's cheating at golf, they're cheaters cheat. End of sentence. So
Wow.
it was a spectacular day at Pebble Beach, by the way.
Okay. Do you play okay? I mean, that's a lot of pressure
Yeah,
when you're playing with a scratch golfer.
yeah. It was in at Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're there for the sights, really, right? You're not even. Who cares where the ball goes? You're just looking out at the ocean, right?
And he took a shot that I swear had to have been with the hand wedge because it was impossible. It was impossible to go from embedded in the lip of the sand trap to the green. It was it was a shot I'll never forget. And the sand's all over the place, and I'm going, "Huh."
You mentioned earlier your husband who was there supporting you when you took this major role for at the public company. Um, he's passed away. I'm sorry for your loss, but obviously, if you read the book and you know anything about you, Suzanne, that he's played a big part in your life. You dedicate the book to Frank. Tell me why to folks who don't know about the relationship you guys had, what made it so magical?
He was, well, first of all, and every time I say this, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I married a guy who graduated from Dartmouth as a physics major. So he was ridiculously smart. He was an actuary at the Hartford. Um, and he treated me not only as an equal, but he just wanted me to do well in everything. He just, he was my biggest fan. He just, was just, nothing made him happier than seeing me happy. And nothing made me happier than seeing him with a good meal. Because his number, other than seeing me successful and happy, his number two was good food. So you know, we just had so much fun. We went, and every year my doctor had said I needed to get away once a quarter if she was going to keep me healthy. So he would schedule a trip away, regardless of all of my I can't get away now. I'm too busy. Blah blah blah. He completely ignored that. And once a year we went at Thanksgiving. We went uh, somewhere internationally. Went to Greece, and we developed the phrase of going on vacations to see big rocks, which was our definition of Chichen Itza and Angkor
Okay,
Wat, you know, UNESCO sites around the world.
big rocks.
Big
Yeah.
rocks, big rocks, yeah. And, so then we started bicycling, and for our 30th wedding anniversary, which turned out to be our 29th, there must have been a math error in there somewhere, um, we went to Southeast Asia biking from, Saigon to Bangkok. And with a stop at Angkor Wat, which was just one of the great UNESCO sites in the world. And, then we started biking. Every year we did a bike trip in Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka and Myanmar, and you just can't imagine how much fun that is to do with someone. And then at the end, we always ended up Spice Roads was the bike company that we went with based in Bangkok, and at the end, they always finished a trip at a resort because, you've been biking 60 miles a day for 10 days or 2 weeks, you're exhausted. So people who go right home after that, that's not a vacation. So we would spend the next week at some wonderful resort on a wonderful beach somewhere, and it was just that's we had a wonderful life. Just every part of our life, and he just was my biggest cheerleader. He just we just loved being together and laughed and laughed and laughed. He made me laugh every day. He made a commitment that he was gonna make sure we laughed every day at the beginning of every day. And
Wow.
during the day, that was our relationship. It was one-liners all the time.
Well, Suzanne, you were not kidding when you started this conversation saying you were the luckiest woman on the planet. Obviously, with your career that we talked about, and also your personal life. So, folks want to find out more about your story and read your book. The title is "Get Your Own Coffee: Underestimated, Overlooked, and Now the Boss." Suzanne Hopgood, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
It was fun.
And that's going to do it for this episode. To find out more information about Suzanne or other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.